Thou shalt keep them, the words, O Lord. Thou shalt preserve them, the words, from this generation forever. So there we have a promise that God promised to preserve His words. His words. Now, I, as a preacher, have a commandment and a charge to preach the Word. If I'm going to preach the Word, then the question comes up, what's the Word? If we don't have the Word, how am I supposed to preach the Word? If all we have is a pretty reliable translation of the Word, it's going to be hard for me to preach the Word because I don't know what's reliable and what's not. So I believe that if God called me to preach, He called me to preach His Word, and I do have a copy of His Word. This can get very complicated. I am not a Bible scholar, and I'm going to tell you something. I don't know anybody that is. I don't know if there is such a thing as a Bible scholar, because a scholar is somebody who's mastered his subject, and nobody's mastered this. So we're all Bible students. Everybody in the world is a Bible student. I'm not sure there is such a thing as a Bible scholar. We're all students learning, and I sure don't claim to be in it. But I do claim to believe the Bible, and I do claim that God has graciously allowed me to hear and be taught by men who believe this book. You say, well, Brother Danny, how do you know you was taught right? Well, that's what we're studying here tonight, and that's what we'll see. Now, I showed you last week that there are two different lines or families of Bibles. Let's just say this is one and this one. The King James Bible was translated from the Greek manuscript called Textus Receptus. That's backwards. That means received text. Text that's received by the common people. It has been blessed with God's hand down through the years. There's a line of Bibles that come before the King James Version that God had His hand on. I don't know if y'all have checked this out or not, but you ought to if you get a chance to get on the internet. I ain't got to see but just a little bit of it, but there's all kinds of things about the 400th anniversary of the King James Bible. They even got Prince Charles on there reading, and I mean, it's pretty good. He was reading John 14, and you know, they say that Britain is proud of the King James Version. That's where it come from. It come from England. And boy, that English is lofty, and it's high, and it's big shot language. It's the Bible that God put His hand on. There's one thing for sure: you don't want an American Bible. You don't want a Bible that come out of America. You want an English Bible that came from over there. Can any good thing come out of America? No, is the answer. We take the Bible that God blessed and preach it. But you don't want a Bible that was wrote or translated here in America. So anyway, you got these. Now look, you got these manuscripts called Textus Receptus. And the King James Bible come out of this line. You have Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, which is another Greek text, and every other modern version comes from that line of Bibles. Now, they agree with this about probably 90% of the time, but it's that 10% that gives them, that's really, really, really bad. Even the New King James Version, as you'll see here in a couple of weeks, lines up in some strategic places with this line of Bibles. I think it was Tracy mentioned last week about the Geneva Bible. It's in this line, just a few Bibles back. Martin Luther's Bible. And I'm going to bring you a whole list and a chart of the Bibles that were in this line, and God blessed them. And then I'll show you a chart that were in this line of Bibles, and they're come from Rome and Vaticanus, that was found in the Vatican, like 1400 or something like that. Sinaiticus back in the 1800s, and they were on this line of Bibles, and they were corrupt. And the reason they were corrupt, because people like Origen cut scriptures out and added scriptures too, as we'll see tonight. So we want to get it down pat, that we get it in our head that our King James Bible comes from this line. Now, the reason these line of Bibles are so popular is because when they discovered these manuscripts, they were considered older, so they figured since they're closer to the original, they must be more right. Now, that's why if you've got a Bible tonight, let's just turn to, I don't know, Mark chapter 16. Let's just all turn to Mark chapter 16 in your Bible. And let's just look at something here. I don't know this, but let me just try something here. Mark 16, let's try a little experiment. All right, now I guess everybody in here has a King James Bible. But here in Mark chapter 16, let's look at, let's see here. Maybe verse 15, 16, somewhere along in there. Now, does anybody in here have a Bible that has a note beside verse 15 or 16 over in the middle of your margin, and it tells you that those last few verses are not supposed to be in your Bible? Who's got it? Or at the bottom? You got one? So I know y'all got one. Some look. Well, let's see what your note says. It's got Mark chapter 16, about the last 9 verses. What do you got, Brother Mike? Read it. There you go. All right, has anybody else got one like that? All right, Courtney, Miss Desi, what does yours say? Is that a Scofield Bible? Is that what you're looking at? It said the last 9 verses. Is that what yours says, Goldie? It says your last 9 verses, in other words, ain't supposed to be in there. And you know why? Here I told you, they cut them out of this line of Bibles. What does you read yours? Read it again, that first part, what he said. Okay, did you hear that? Stop right there. Both verses 9 through 20 are not found in the 2 most ancient manuscripts, Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. That's what I'm talking about, the 2 most ancient manuscripts. Now, you know what they're saying? Since they're most ancient, they must be right. Now, you know all that's doing? All that's doing is saying verses 9 to 20 ain't supposed to be in your Bible in so many words. Does anybody else have it in your Bible that's not a Scofield Bible? Okay, what does it say?
It basically says the same thing. It's got the King James on one side, a Living Bible on the other side.
Oh, okay.
It's the same thing at the bottom.
What does it say down at the bottom?
About 9 through 20 are not found in the most ancient manuscripts. It says 16, 12, later that day literally after these things. Then it says 16, 17, speak new language, literally they will speak in new tongues, some ancient manuscripts.
Okay. Now, y'all see what I'm saying now? Is it starting to make is it seeming important now? What they're doing is they're casting doubt on your Bible. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This line of Bibles has those last 9 verses all the way back. That line of Bibles don't. Somebody cut it out. You say, well, why would they even think that's right? Because they're older. And they think because they're older that they're more right. Now, I showed you last week why they're older. Why are they older? Nobody used them. Nobody used them. They stayed on the shelf. You leave a book on the shelf and nobody ever uses it, it stays the same. They wore these out and wore these out and wore these out and wore these out. That's a Roman type text and the wrong kind of text, and it's got, if it takes out the last 9 verses of Mark. All right? Now, that's what I've been trying to show you, the 2 lines of Bibles. So whenever you're reading your Bible, or whenever you hear a preacher on the radio So these women preachers on the radio, these men preachers on the radio, especially on like WMIT, a lot of them guys, they'll say, the oldest authorities say, they'll say, the most reliable translations say, the best Greek text say, they mean Vaticanus and Sinaiticus.